Hello, my name is Gino Castellanos. As an artist, I've been interested in the power of stories to create works that are relatable not only on a universal level, but on a deep, transcendent level that remains true across time. I have been using visual images and symbols to impart meaning well before I fully understood why I felt attracted to this kind of communication. My work is informed by traditional cultures, both modern and ancient, filtered through Western literature, mythology, and religion. My objective is to understand and put to use a common language of symbols that remain constant across continents and time, and is still an enduring way of communicating meaning. It turns out that there are things that are true across all peoples, ones that are linked to our necessity for survival as a species. I like to call these things that we don't know we already know. In this short presentation, I hope to demonstrate how good fiction can be more true than you think, and how using it effectively may result in art that transcends time. Carl Jung believed that outside of the domain of the things we had mastered lay the great unknown or unexplored territory. For Jung, the use of imagination was a powerful tool we can use to figure out how to deal with unexplored territory before we engage physically to our great peril. Jung, in his own complex way, also believed that if we did not use our creative power to think ahead and to grapple with the abstract ideas we did not fully understand, that we were not serving our community, moving our culture forward, or honoring our ancestors. But what does that mean exactly? Our ancestors had to do a great deal of imagining and problem solving in order to figure out the complexities of the world before there were science as we know it today. Before language, we were already creating ways of recording stories and events through creative power. Cultures were formed through systems of identity and communication that groups developed in relation to their own unique struggles. Before modern science, there was a lot of experimentation to figure out how to engage and grapple with this dangerous, deadly world. We understood early on that in order to survive, we needed to learn how to conduct ourselves to avoid unnecessary suffering in a world already naturally saturated with risks. The first symbols we recognized were natural and embedded in our DNA. Since the times when we were arboreal, we developed a fear of heights, snakes, bad smells, fire, and darkness, among other things. Seeing the image of snakes is easily understood as a sign of danger. Being in the dark creates anxiety because when we cannot see, we can't prepare for the danger that lurks. This is why when telling a story, describing something as being dark or showing it in a film can create natural anxiety. It's a language already understood. When we see fire, we try to put it out, or if we can't, we know to run for our lives. A symbology like this continued to be developed. A great complicated network of language was created. Then there's also the complex, abstract ideas that ancient cultures had a hard time fully grasping. Ideas that even philosophers today can't quite contend with. What happens after we die? Is that really the end? What is malevolence? And how can we protect ourselves from it? Human stories and myths were created out of the need to understand these challenges. These myths were really a group of scholars attempting to explain things in a way that made some sort of sense, and using the explanation to try to guide everyone else in a manner that ensured our survival. Religions of the world also have roots in these stories. The best and most efficient way our ancestors found to disseminate these ideas of survival was through the enactment of drama. These stories not only provided entertainment, but could also help pass this information down through generations through oral traditions. Stories of struggle and becoming can be so strong and ring so true that they can spawn entire religions and followers and shape entire nations under common philosophies. They can change the course of politics, societies, kingdoms, ideologies, and when corrupted, they can lead to the fall of civilizations and, of course, war. Myths and religions can be expressed in visual form, able to overcome language barriers because they do not communicate with words necessarily, but with truths and symbols commonly understood by everyone. In this creative language, common, universal truths can be found across different cultures. The human imagination creates dramatic scenarios that contend with make-believe situations, and we use our mind's power to solve these fictitious problems. We'll learn from these stories ways to navigate life choices that we can apply to our own human experience. Our lives have a lot of mundane, boring experiences when a good book can be a distilled version of our lives. As a child, I understood that hard work paid off, not from personal experience, but from reading the children's story, The Three Little Piggies. Without having to build my own brick house, I understood the value of the lesson. Really good stories have power. They come from creative minds that use tradition and ancient truth. Great literature such as Crime and Punishment teach you to not be arrogant and think yourself above others, that intelligence and good looks aren't everything, and that guilt can be incredibly traumatic. It teaches you these things while it envelops you in a fictitious and entertaining drama that can ring true with your own life, because in a way, you are reading about yourself and your ancestors, and not just some fictitious character. I have a lot of respect for art that engages social justice and change, and appreciate art that talks about current issues or showcases modern vistas of our time. But with this idea of traditional narrative to impart meaning, I have chosen to go a slightly different route. Today, I strive to pay close attention to my surroundings, pay attention to people and their behaviors, read about what our ancestors were deeply concerned with, and create a link that joins us with our past, both psychologically and spiritually, in order to better organize ourselves moving forward. And so, this is why I have decided to use fiction in my art to talk about issues that are not just current, but universally present at all times. I use fiction to impart meaning that is more real than whatever the current situation may be, because these things repeat themselves across culture and time always.